Had I not created my whole world, I would certainly have died in other people's. The canvas is ready. I will return with 4 savants, masters of their craft, ready to leave their legacy on my great metropolis in the sky. Floating clay, waiting to be sculpted at the hands of the greatest visionaries of our time. Antonio Santellia, the futurist architect. Vera Muhina, queen of Soviet sculpture. Fritz Lang, the expressionist master of darkness. And Tamara Lempicka, the Art Deco baroness with a brush. Let us build this future together. Skyrise is an accessible 2 to 4 player game of patience, deduction, and scarcity for players who enjoy tight gameplay and tough decisions. Designed and developed by Roxley, Skyrise is a brand new game inspired by Sebastien Pauchon's 2008 SDJ recommended Metropolys. Like Metropolys, Skyrise features a brilliant spatial auction mechanism where players create a chain of adjacent bids until the highest bidder constructs their building. Skyrise will have you fully enthralled as you quickly realize the strategic importance of every bid made with your scarce supply of buildings. Gain prestige to become the city's greatest visionary. Win the favor of philosophers, naturalists, artists, and inventors to increase the value of your buildings in their neighborhoods. Create works for famous patrons, deduce whose commissions offer the most prestige, and keep it secret from your opponents. Reach for the stars by constructing the tallest buildings on each island. Build magnificent wonders whose special abilities dramatically affect your strategy. Team Roxley loves Skyrise. Even after years of development and refinement, we are still excited to play it every single time it hits the table. Help us build Skyrise together and receive the deluxe edition featuring 5 intricately sculpted 3D islands, 52 beautifully detailed building miniatures, 4 visionary boards, 30 alluring objective cards, heaps of tokens in an elegant drawstring bag, stored all together in a package designed to actually fit on your shelf and make setup a snap. Skyrise, a game of auctioning and artistic egos. Now on Kickstarter.
Hey everybody, welcome to another One Good Turn video where we present to you basically a virtual overview style demo like you would see at a fair or convention, but we use TTS and give you a sample turn as well just to present the game in a different light, let you see how the mechanics and everything work together. And, hopefully this is under 20 minutes. We'll see how we do, Adam. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'd never noticed in that video you said a box that'll fit on your shelf. That's very important nowadays to me.
Table
real
that's
estate.
Important to us.
So how you doing today?
Doing great. Feeling good.
Campaign's going good.
Started off strong. It's been fun.
Right on. Well, let's get to the table and take a look at what you guys have done with the 2008 Metropolys. Obviously, this game will stand on its own, but there will be some comparisons. But not too worried about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
yeah.
Should I just go ahead into the pitch a little bit here? Or?
Yeah, give us a little pitch what the game is. I mean, they saw the video, but in a nutshell, what are players doing and how we're scoring, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we are all artistic visionaries building this city in the sky dedicated to art and beauty. The Skyrise itself is made up of 5 islands, and these are modular boards that can be set up in whatever orientation. And you're going to use a different set. You're going to remove boards based on the player count, so it scales. A 3-player game, you'd remove one of these islands and place them around randomly. But this is set up for a 4-player game. During setup, you randomly place these discs, one into each of these neighborhoods. The game plays over 2 eras. So in the first era, you will have certain buildings available to bid. Everyone has a set of 7 bids available that will become buildings when you outbid your opponents. And like it shows in the video, the game's played over a number of auctions. So out of these bids I have available, I'm going to choose one of these if I'm the first player to start the game. And I'm going to choose something. And when you start an auction, I'm going to bring this over to here. You can either start on any of the central neighborhoods on the center island or anywhere adjacent to an existing building. Since this is the first turn of the game, there's no other existing buildings out there in Skyrise. So I'm going to start right here on one of these central island neighborhoods. The player is going to move clockwise around the table. So it's going to move to the red player. They must outbid me, outbid my 33 that I chose to bid, into an adjacent neighborhood. The adjacencies are anywhere connected. If there is a line, like a road connecting the two neighborhoods, they're connected. As well, we have these bridges that connect islands. So this doesn't quite line up in TTS exactly, but in reality, this lines up here. There are bridges coming off the central island. There's also 2 bridges connecting the sides of each island up here. So like this green one is connected to this white one as well.
Gotcha.
So the next player will, let's say, choose to outbid me across this bridge into this area. Goes clockwise. Yellow player can choose to outbid next to the most recent bid. So their options are across the bridge over here, here, or here. This space right here isn't adjacent. So let's say you outbid. Next player can either outbid or pass. So we continue on this way until one player, once you pass, you can't jump back into the auction. We go until either there's no space to outbid adjacent to the most recent bid, or everyone's passed. So let's say this player really wants a space. Everyone else passes. What happens is the winning bid gets flipped over, it becomes a constructed building. Every other player gets their buildings back, so only one building will get constructed after each auction. The player who won the bid in this neighborhood gets to collect the disc in that neighborhood. And there's 2 main types of discs. I'll get to those in a second, but for now I'll put this on this player's board here, this teal player. Collected a yellow disc. So they're increasing their favor with the philosophers that reside in the yellow neighborhoods, basically.
So they won the bid. They get to claim the disc in that area, and then so I assume there's 4 resources or 4 different types, right?
Basically, what it is you've got this 2 at the top of the column, and every building you have at the end of the game on a yellow neighborhood, let's do this for now, would be worth 2 points. Okay. Every one of your buildings on a yellow neighborhood on the board is worth 2 points. Now that I've collected this, every building on a yellow neighborhood is worth 3 points at the end of the game.
Ah, gotcha.
So you want to increase that. One of the interesting things here is that we go 3 points, 4 points per building, 6 points per building. If you collect a 4th one, that's actually negative. It's back down to 4. But if you collect additional tokens, each one is worth 8 points. So you can kind of shoot the moon if you collect a whole bunch of those tokens, but you really need to dive into that. And it's not something you can decide kind of at the beginning of the game.
Right.
It happens as the play evolves if you happen to collect a lot of a certain token. Anyway, I'm getting too deep in that. This player won and constructed their building. They start the next auction. So they can choose any one of their available bids, and they can either start on the central island again or adjacent to an existing structure. So let's say they want to go right here. I'll do one more little auction here. Let's say this player decides to now build quite high, bid quite high right here. And the reason for this is if they secure this building in this spot, you'll notice this little one is a dead end. It becomes isolated. So let's say everyone else passes. This player takes their bid. Blue will take this. And before I get to the next auction, show them taking this little spot, I'll explain these patron tokens. So when the blue player here collects this patron token, it goes on their character board down here. So they collected this B. And those represent you doing artistic works for these 4 art patrons. So if you scroll to the top of the game board, up here, we have these 3 patrons, and we collected a B token. So I would get to peek at the value of this B. So I'll just flip it over in this case, just so. now I know that every B token on the board is worth 4 points. These all have values of 3, 4, 5, and 8, and those are right on the back of the token there. But so by collecting that token, I've got a little bit of information that the other players don't currently have. I'm obviously searching for that 8-point token, that 8-point letter, and once I have that, I have that information of the more and more of the values of these things that other players might not necessarily have until they collect them themselves.
Interesting.
Okay, so let me mention this little dead end situation that I was talking about here at the bottom. So this player collected this, they start the next auction. Now, they could place a 24 right here because it's adjacent to an existing building. There is no adjacent spot that another player can outbid them. So they're just going to win this auction for very cheap and collect this token. Each island has one of these little dead ends at the start of the game. These are in kind of different spaces. If you go up, straight up to the island above, you'll notice this one is kind of right off the center. So if you collect this one, the next player can, or you can take that one for cheap as well. There's some interesting dynamics as well, because if someone bids too low right here, the next player can grab this for super cheap also.
Right.
So these dead ends, there's some at the beginning of the game, and you'll notice more and more of them will evolve as the game goes on. If we scroll back down to where we built some of these buildings down here, if I win this bid, or if some player wins this bid, this has become a dead end because of this building up above it and down below it. So more and more of these little pockets will be created.
And then you can take those for yourself, right, if you're next to them. So.
And it all depends whether you want these particular things as well. It's nice to get your buildings down, but maybe you want these.
Or you don't want your opponent to grab one.
Right. There are going to be, we'll go up above the board and show some of these objective cards. So there are 2 of these panorama cards that are drawn out each game. And these are going to drastically affect the kind of the landscape of the game. There's 5 of these in the game, and 2 of them are drawn out. So there's 10 different combinations. For this game, we've got blimps as one of our goals and bridges. So Skyrise is a reimagining of Metropolys, an older game. In the original Metropolys, these were private cards, so players would have them in their hands. But in this case, they are public goals, so everyone is going for blimps. And what that means is there are these purple blimps on the board, and if you build 3 times around a particular blimp, you'll get 3 points. And these are scored both at the halfway point at the end of Era 1 and at the end of Era 2. So similar to like Brest, Lancashire, and Birmingham, if you can get a level 2 industry in Brest in the first half of the game, you're going to score it twice. So that has the same effect here. So that's one of the goals. This can be now, because teal is next to this blimp, if they can secure this one and then this little dead end, that will secure them a blimp early on. So that can be really valuable for them. The other goal we have up here is bridges. If you have built on both sides of a bridge, you'll get 3 prestige. So each player is going for these goals to get some points. The other card we got up here is island control, and this is one of the main scoring elements of the game. You'll notice you might need to pan downwards a bit, that each building has a height. They're either short, medium, or tall. If you change the angle, you can see that the buildings that we've built on the board, or the ones in here, we've got a short one here. This player has already built their tall one, but it is 3 times as high as the short one. Once a building has been built, its number no longer matters, only its height. So at the halfway point and at the end of the game, we're going to compare the heights of the buildings. Whoever has built the tallest buildings on an island is going to score the 5 points for that island. So there's 5 points available for each. So there's some area control stuff going on there as well.
And that's based on the card that comes out, which I assume is different. The island control card probably varies each game, right?
No, island control is always
No?
the same.
Okay.
The other two
goals are.
differ.
Perfect.
Yeah. We have it on a card just because at end game I find it nice and easy to, you've scored this thing, flip it over. Score
Right.
this one, flip it over. Island control is the same. If players tie for island control, if they've got the same number of tall buildings, then we check who has the most medium-sized buildings amongst those tied players. If there's still a tie, we go to small buildings. If there's no tie broken, then those players will share the 5 points. Ties are friendly, so each would get 5 points. So one of the interesting things with this game and the area control is that it can be nice to not be patient and grab things that you want to grab early on, like around blimps or around bridges in this case. But by doing so, your opponents can see exactly what they need to do to beat you out for island control. If you bid too early, you're kind of showing your hand in a way where other people know exactly what they need to do to beat you now. Okay, so I mentioned the game's played over 2 eras. In the first era, we have these 7 buildings. Once one player has built all their era 1 buildings, we move on to the second era. What happens there is everyone unlocks all their other buildings. So you get a bunch of, like a refresh. Do this with this player here. These are added. If there's some buildings that you didn't build in the first era, these are just added to your supply. And you also get this wonder, which is a special building. This is not flipped over. Wonders have a special power associated with them. So players are going to get some cards. Let me just throw down a hand of cards. Players will get 3 cards to choose from. And at this halfway point, they're going to choose which one of these powers they want associated with their wonder. These are like an immediate scoring element when that wonder is built. So they're situationally good in different board states. You might really like one in a particular game, and the next game maybe it just doesn't work out with the way the board's been going. They each have an initiative value at the top as well, which is interesting. Usually the ones with a higher initiative value have the potential to score you more points most of the time. But the advantage of picking one with a low initiative value is that you get to start the next auction at the beginning of Era 2. And whenever any one player goes out, when they build their last building, we check initiative again. The next player to start the auction will be the one with the highest initiative, or with the lowest initiative value. So let's just say this player chose, at the halfway point, Lynch's image. We will discard the other ones. Everyone is going to simultaneously choose a wonder card that gives their wonder this cool power. The other cool thing about wonders is, since they don't have a number, they just simply win an auction when they're bid. You can't start a bid with a wonder, but let's say we're chaining a bunch of bids along. I decide this is a great spot to build my wonder. I just win that auction by placing it down.
So whoever puts the wonder down first wins the auction, right?
Yes. There is one wonder that allows you to break that rule. You can outbid other wonders, but normally, yes, that's just like the end of the auction when someone places down their wonder.
So if I may interject, looking at those cards, it's kind of like, if I'm getting this right, is that, so you get 3 of those and you choose one at the beginning of the game? Do you have to decide right away, or can you hang on to them and decide?
You hang on to them until that halfway point when you're unlocking your new buildings. So you can. So
this is another like scoring objective, right? Because it's going to change. That's cool, because the game's going to change on you. You might be going for that, but then obviously your plans get foiled.
Yeah.
But you can tactically deal with that with maybe an optional card if you were working on a plan. I really like that. That's cool. That's an interesting element.
And one of the cool things about when you play in 2 players is you'll get 2 wonders. So let's say we're playing just this blue player and the teal player. Each player will get a neutral colored wonder. And so they get to choose 2 wonder cards from amongst a hand of 5. So you get even more flexibility in a 2-player game with that. It's proved to be really cool.
You want to talk about the changes in the 2-player game now, since you brought it up? Or do you want to wait?
Sure.
Because for those that
Actually,
don't know, the
let me
original
finish
was yeah. Okay. Yeah,
the
sorry.
end of the game stuff because I'm almost there. So
Fair enough.
we're into Era 2. Players have unlocked their buildings. When the first player builds their last building, they will get the key to the city. So this is an extra token. Let's say this player built it. I put it right on their character board along with other tokens they may have collected throughout the game. So that's worth 10 points for whoever goes out first. So it's a nice positive thing. There's tension towards collecting that. You may think you're close to it sometime, but other players can pull off a clever set of successful bids and steal it away. But in a 3 or 4 player game, there's also the small key, which is worth 4 points for the player who goes out second. In this game, everyone will get to build all their buildings. So play will just pass to the player who has the lowest initiative value on their wonder after someone goes out. Yeah, so then at the end of the game, we're again going to score island control and panorama cards. So again, they can score twice if you manage to secure those things in the first half. Island control will obviously change from one era to the other. And then we're going to score all the tokens you've collected, the A, B, C, D, as well as then finally you're going to get the most points from your buildings, like I mentioned, where this player had collected this token to make the value of their yellow bids on yellow neighborhoods worth more. They'll score 3 points per building on yellow. And that includes your wonder that will score like a structure as well. Yeah, so you're trying to have the most prestige after those 2 eras.
Yeah, I definitely like the the wonder element. That's interesting to capture those bids. But I would love to know, like I was starting to say, I didn't mean to cut you off. The original Metropolis, I've played it. It was okay. I like the concept, but I'm glad to see you guys have taken it on. And I'm curious to hear. You had said there's pretty good design dev on BGG for people that want to look it up, but maybe you can paraphrase some of the changes for 2-player, because I know a lot of people are interested in like how this is going to work, because auctions usually like, is that going to work with 2? But I see some potential for this being really good.
Yeah, for sure. I love it at all player counts. The part of what allows it to scale really nicely is these modular islands. So if you're playing with 3 players, you would have only chosen 2 of these outer islands and place them randomly around the outside. 2 players, same thing. You're only going to have 2 of these outer islands. And the way you lay them out before seeing any of the objectives or anything can be really interesting as well, because you can be playing with an island in this bottom left corner and one in the top right corner and have this really interesting long board, really different layout that's really going to affect how the auctions end up playing out versus 2 side by side. One of the other things I mentioned with 2 players is the 2 wonders that each player has. I find 2-player can be quite aggressive. It gets you more into the aggressive bidding mindset quicker. When players first play this game, sometimes they're just exploring the system. Almost, they're starting with low bids, and we're making these nice long chains of buildings. We're just seeing where they go. Players don't really know the value of these things quite yet as they're exploring. But as you get more and more experience, you start bumping up those bids faster and kind of forcing players into tough decisions. And I feel one thing that the 2-player game does really well is kind of jump you into the deep end with that a little bit quicker. If you are not outbidding your opponent, there's no one else that can take on that responsibility of preventing your opponent from having that great spot. And so it's up to you. Everything's zero sum. If you get your opponent is getting great things, they're directly taking them from your opportunities.
Do you with 2? Maybe I missed it. So you put a building down, right? And then I have to put a building down. So if do I have to outbid you, or why? I guess it's a dumb question. I don't really understand. But like, would it just be me then you, and then if I don't outbid you, or if I outbid you, do you get to put another one down? How does that work? with 2.
No, if you decide to pass, I just get wherever I had placed my previous bid. You can never outbid
So I have
yourself.
to outbid you then. And then what if I outbid you? Is that it?
No, we keep going back and forth. So then I can outbid you.
Oh yeah, we're placing buildings in different areas, right? And we're moving along and snaking along. So that does make that's a weird dynamic because you don't know where you're going to end up with. You don't know what spots you're going to get, right?
Yeah. One of the cool things about the auction mechanic in this game that I haven't seen anywhere else. It's what made me fall in love with Metropolys in the first place. Is that, let's say I'm bidding on this thing. By you outbidding me, we're not bidding for the same thing. You are now bidding on something else, these other things. And if I'm outbidding you, I'm both outbidding for maybe these are good for me, but also I don't want you to have this thing. There's two things going on. Like, we're not bidding for the same thing ever. We're just making these interesting chains. I didn't mention these 2 tokens. This is cool. If I win this bid, this is a wild token, so I get to play that
for the board.
Place that on any of the rows of my board. But I have to do it at the time I take it. I can never move it around. So
you're committing. Is the adjacency, you said bridges? I guess I know it's TGS. There's the bridge. So that makes this one connected there. Okay, not these other ones. Okay. I'm sure that'll look better in final product too, but it looks really cool. And then I think you forgot to say, or we didn't show it because it's attached, but with 2, you remove one of the squares, right? One of the corners.
In 2 players, you remove 2 of them, basically. You're only going to choose two islands. 3 player would have 3 outer islands. Okay. This is set up for a 4.
Correct. Okay. Well, I think that's a pretty good overview. What inspired Roxley to pick this up? Was it just a passion for the game?
Passion for the game, basically. Gavin, who runs Roxley, had signed Metropolys. He had played it and loved it. I had never played it, but I came out to one of our playtesting nights at the Roxley office at one point, and there was a bunch of our local playtesting people around, but Gavin had mentioned he had signed the game, and I was really excited to try it out. So I played the game, learned it from the rulebook because Gavin was off playing something else, along with 2 other players, and just fell in love with the game and really wanted to kind of lead the charge on the development of it. And that was years ago. This was a really slow, admittedly very slow development process, where we even set it aside for a year, which can be really handy sometimes, coming back with a totally fresh outlook on it. Because sometimes when you're grinding the same thing over and over, ideas can kind of get samey. When you come back to something, you can often have some inspiration that you didn't have before.
For sure, you're looking at it a different way.
Yeah, that's what we found with this. It really, there was some things that were not quite right, and they were like almost okay, but coming back to it after a year away really solved those things, and we're so happy with all the systems and the tightness and the solutions. Where I can't believe we didn't think of this before. This seems obvious now. This is the way it should work. But
was the wonders in the original, or is that new?
That's new. Yeah,
that's a cool concept, man. The fact you can assign 3, I didn't even catch that on the page, so that has piqued my interest for sure. Now we'll have to try to play this after we record this. But that's definitely a new dynamic, and good to see some other elements layered.
Yeah, one of the things that's new as well, that's kind of fundamental early on in our development here, is those 2 eras. One thing we like, there was just at the beginning of Metropolys, you just get 13 buildings, 1 through 13. That's your set. We wanted to have this scoring at the halfway point, as well as oftentimes new players will spend all their big buildings very early and kind of be locked out of the game for quite a while. It's hard to be patient as a new player. You want to win it. And when you win it, now you don't have your big building anymore. So you can't outbid, and you're kind of like sitting on the sideline a little bit for a while. And still there's a tendency to do that with new players. it's hard to be patient. But one of the things that this 2-era system does is that you get this refresh at the half as well. You get some points, you get to kind of see, oh, this is how those panorama cards that you explained at the beginning, how they work. I see people got some points. All right, I could do this better. Now I understand fully, and now I've got all my buildings to work with. And now I've got some new big ones, and let's get into it. Let's get into the second half.
You don't take them back, right? You just get the new ones and
Correct,
then keep going, right?
One of the neat things about the second half buildings too is it's a little bit of a catch-up mechanism. Let's say this player, the Era 2 buildings are marked with a little dot on the bottom, so those are the ones that we've unlocked. Let's say this player had built some of these out on the board, and they carried over their 52 and 61. They unlocked all these ones at the half. So these are the ones I put down here. They're out on the board somewhere. Just throw them out there. So they carried over the 52 and 61. Let's say the blue player over to the left had built all their buildings. And so they're just unlocking their Era 2 stuff here. You got a 111, this is their Wonder, 43, 103, and 112. You'll notice the Era 2 buildings have this big gap in the middle, and it's a little bit of a catch-up mechanism, because if the other player wasn't able to get their 52 and 61 down, they become very, very powerful in the second half. Because that teal player, if they bid their 52, the only way the blue player can outbid is by really going big. So they have these extra control if you're not able to put down some of your mid-level buildings in the first half.
Definitely adds some strategy to that, and it gives you an option to not be dead, because I think that happened when we played it. It was just like, okay, this is it. There was really not a lot of depth to it. You just put out your stuff and you collect things, and we were just kind of not enamored with it. I like there's some subtle changes that definitely changed the dynamic for those that might have not liked the original or are concerned about maybe they've never done a bidding game. I think this is definitely a hardcore bidding game, though. So there's a lot of bluffing, a lot of reading your players.
Yes, you can obviously see the bids that every player has remaining. So if
right.
if I know you've got this 43, I want to make sure that I don't bid my 42. All the bids are fully visible. I can see exactly what tokens you have, what you've been building on. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning of the game that I apologize for, each player will get a secret objective as well. So this is something that kind of kickstarts your goals. This is a hidden thing. It is, in this case, each one of these is a different color. So each player will have one of these. If at the end of the game you have 4 buildings built on white neighborhoods, in this case, you get 10 points. Everyone has a different color. So that can give you a starting objective to start going for. And that's one of the things you're trying to deduce what color the other player has as well. So each player has kind of a different value to different neighborhoods.
Gotcha.
Not only from their secret objectives, but the value that they're getting from the tokens they've collected. If this player has all of these, they're getting 6 points per bid on yellow at this point. So I want to prevent the blue player from winning yellow bids, or at least want to make it expensive for them.
Right, and you might assume they have that goal, so...
Mm-hmm. Those patron tokens, the A, B, C, D as well, if this player collected this B, no one else knows what that B is yet. This was one of the early auctions. But let's say they really spend a big bid on the next B. Now, am I going to assume that they're trying to fake me out, or is this B worth 8 points? So there's a lot of meta growing in this information that's slowly coming out. Even though the blue player is the only one that knows what the B is worth, by everyone else seeing what they're bidding on that B or next to the B, we can kind of try to suss out a little extra
or you can bluff people easily.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody else has, is there more than one B? Or is there only? Yeah, there's multiple of each letter. So once your opponent
4.
gets one, I would assume there's less in a 2-player, but yeah, when somebody has the ladder, if you both have it, I guess in a multiplayer game, I could see that being a little trickier where 2 people have it, and like you could mess with other players. Only one person knows what it is; the other 2 don't.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
that's a really interesting system going on here as well.
So we've got 2 sets of buildings. We get those. There's an intermediate scoring then, right? When the first era ends, we score just like we would at the end of the game. Okay.
We score the 3 cards at the top: the island control and the 2 panorama cards that we've got for the game.
So they score twice at the beginning and the
end. Yeah. And so we had drawn 2 of these during the game setup. There's some other ones like chains. So if you have a chain of 3 buildings, which are adjacent buildings on a particular island, that's worth 3 points, both at the half at the end. There are these windmills. So there's 2 of them on each island. So basically that's just if you build on a windmill space, that's worth 2 points, both at the half and at the end. And the other one are the lakes. So you want to be around a lake, just like around a blimp, same kind of thing. If you build 3 times around a particular lake, that's worth 3 points. So it really changes up the way the value of the various spaces, depending on what cards come up at the beginning.
For sure. Yeah, those are definitely adding some dynamics to it.
And this game is very, very replayable. If players choosing different colors, we've got different island setups, we've got different panorama cards. I played this as the developer, or one of the developers, played hundreds of times, and I'm so interested every single time. I even love, because I've been doing the rule books as well, doing blind playtests with people new to the game, and it's just as interesting to watch 4 newbies stumble around and make bad decisions as it is to be playing a cutthroat game, just me and Gavin.
Right. Very cool. I'm excited to try it out. A lot of elements, a lot of things that you've improved, things that are still the same, but definitely some intricacies, if you will, that's going to add a lot of depth to it for people that were curious. So I really appreciate it. Just for the sake of time, I want to keep this short. I think we've covered a lot. How long are the average play times?
2-player game is usually about half an hour, and we've got 75 minutes to 90 minutes for a 4-player game.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to show us this game. For those who don't know, it's on Kickstarter right now. Make sure if you like this video to subscribe and hit that like button below. And again, I'll thank Adam and Roxley for taking the time out and including us on this journey to success. You guys make amazing games, and it's great to be a part of it, and always glad to see something new you guys are coming out with. So
yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Out.
Bye.